I mean, it's such a detailed report that looks across stocks with a very wide lens. But in the here and now, I want to go to that word indiscriminate and just that paragraph of the report where you summarize the last few weeks. What do you think was happening?
Right. So I think it's important, and on the back of the announcement that you just discussed, to understand that we're in the very early innings of what is likely to be a $10 trillion CapEx investment cycle. That investment cycle is underwritten by a productivity story. As the technology diffuses into the market, there is real productivity acceleration, which is important because the last 2 decades we've been running at labor productivity that is half of normal levels. Because we knew this adoption story was going to be critical and it was going to touch all sectors of the market, we have now 5 times over mapped the 3,600 stocks that we cover to understand rate of change, exposure, materiality, pricing power. And it's on the back of that data that, yes, we've been able to identify where there are companies that have been sold indiscriminately, and there's a real opportunity. We see that in software and services. In research, we're a heavy adopter of AI technology. And the conversations we're having right now with large language models is how do we connect those models to the applications and data that we use every day to unlock the real potential. And so you can see that, the list that we published last week, the thread across the software and services companies are where there is a data moat, whether that's credit or it's market data or it's systems of record in financials or customer data.
This is the 5th time you've kind of done this exercise of mapping global AI stocks, right? And you list margin expansion as the leading piece of evidence of ROI. I'm thinking back to earlier in earnings season when we had names like Salesforce, ServiceNow, and that part of the research report I flagged at the beginning, fundamentals. They didn't really get the benefit of the doubt from the market. They showed actually quite a lot of real-world deployment of that technology. But something, isn't quite believed by the street. What is that?
So what's really important in this data set is tracking rate of change. So if you go back 2 years ago, the big rate of change in exposure materiality was energy and utilities. That sector outperformed the most in 2024. Last year, it was financials. At the beginning of 2025, we highlighted as the biggest rate of change. Financials, by many accounts, even outperformed parts of the technology sector last year. Right now, the rate of change is actually greatest in non-tech categories, particularly in consumer and apparel, in durable goods, in autos. And so, yes, we see areas of software that have been sold indiscriminately where there is a data moat and there's an opportunity, but it's broader than just technology. What we see in the data is that the AI adopters are experiencing margin expansion that's double the market indices, double the MSCI World Index, double the S&P 500. And so we believe that there's a regime shift happening in the market away from a purely tech and specifically AI enabler leadership to now broadening of AI adoption and leadership, not just in technology, but across all sectors.
Katy, tied to this, one of the big moments of last year was Morgan Stanley launching its private companies coverage, going much deeper on private companies who are so active in this world, right? Have you shifted existing analysts from public to private companies? Are you onboarding specific private analysts on specific domains? We just have 30 seconds.
Right. So we believe that the domain experts that cover the public companies are typically and best positioned to also cover private sectors. But there are areas of thematics, think humanoids and AI, where we have shifted analysts from stock coverage to covering those thematics where there will be a lot of private company innovation. But most of the time, that coverage comes from our existing public company domain experts.